Hey, what's up? I'm Chuy Filoso. I am the Barber's Barber, and this segment is focused on interviewing interesting people in the chair. You're gonna see a lot of people in my chair. I'm gonna be cutting them up, as well as people that I trust to cut my own hair. And let's not wait too much and get started with it. Today, our first guest is gonna be Rush. He's an instructor at Ivy League Barber Academy, and I'll let him introduce himself. Well, welcome, Rush. Thank you for being, I guess, the first participant of being one of my victims. I'm here in the chair. I know I've cut your hair in the past. What hair? But I've cut I've cut and shaved you in the past. But yeah, Rush, this segment really is like me doing this. The Barber's Barber is really about like getting to know people in the chair. You know, I think it's really important how you know, we have a really important role as being barbers and behind the chair.
Right.
And we really don't really get to hear the story of actual barbers. You know, we're always behind the chair, so I thought it'd be pretty cool to put some barbers in the chair and have a conversation of like how they started, who they are, and all that. So let's get it started off by, who are you, Rush? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, my name is Rush Astronomo. I'm also an educator here at Ivy League Barber Academy. I've been an educator for about 3 years now, I believe. Just a little year later after they opened, you know, I came in here and started teaching. Prior to that, I've been cutting hair for over 20 years. From what I can remember, I've been cutting since I was 14 years old. Professionally, I would say about 7. And if I'm being quite honest, I didn't think barbering was an actual job.
So let's stop real quick. So total amount of years you've been cutting this for
20 plus years.
20 plus years. And you started cutting at the age of what?
14.
14.
And I'm 42 now.
Oh dang, you don't even look that old.
Right? A little cool thing, a little cool fact, I was talking to you about this earlier. When I was young, I was always been surrounded with a bunch of barbers. My uncle was a barber. I grew up in the Philippines, so when I was, you know, was a little kid, my uncle would always just cut my hair in the middle of the street, right? And
isn't that like very common? Like
very common,
yeah.
Third world, you know, country. We just do everything outside, you know what I mean? So
you make it happen.
yeah, you gotta make it happen. So another thing was, another cool thing was, you know, I went also to the same barber that my parents and my uncles went to. And, you know, when I came in here in the States at the age of 14, believe it or not, he was still alive. And maybe I would say like 3-4 years later after that, that's when he, you know, finally passed.
So this barber, this is like a back at home barber, right?
Yeah.
He was able to cut generations of your family?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Cut my dad, my uncle, their friends, you know, all of them growing up. You know, I mean, this barbershop, it was kind of far from where I live. So what they used to do is, you know, I'm pretty much in a family of a bunch of basketball players. So in the Philippines, you know, they would kind of have like a little league.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. How tall are you, Rush?
I'm 5'11", I think.
Dang.
Yeah.
You're very tall.
And so since they go in that way anyways, what they would do is they would try to get a haircut before the game, you know, and they've been going with the same person ever since, you know. Just imagine how many years this guy put in barbering, you know, it's kind of cool. And barbering to me, honestly, it always intrigues me because I feel like it's a thing that, you know, it's cool to do, you know, if you can cut hair. And how I really started when I first came in here, it was kind of scary because, you know, around my time during like early 90s, you know, there's a lot of gang members. And the only barbershop that we have where I used to live in San Fernando Valley is run by gang members. So not a lot of people would try to go there, especially kids my age, because there's a lot of shooting. So, you know, we just started cutting our own hair, and I was that guy. So
you're the local barber?
Yeah, I was the backyard barber.
The backyard barber? I feel like a lot of us started, you know, in the backyard.
Yeah. So on top of me cutting my brothers and my friends, you know, now they started telling other people. Now I'm cutting a bunch of gang members, you know. And it's kind of cool because, in a way, I get to know people. Not just that. At that time, like drive-by shooting and just the gangs was so was around or more dominant around that time, and that kind of keep us away from it. I would say, and when we go to my mom's backyard, we would just cut. I would just cut and just have fun, and believe it or not, I cut like different gang members. But when they're my mom, hey, we got to keep the peace. You know what I mean? And it's kind of cool.
How did that affect you like with your parents? With your mom having all these strangers at home. How was that dynamic?
It wasn't bad because, every single, people that went in my house, they actually know, and my parents, they were cool. Sometimes they would even cook lunch and dinners for them.
Oh wow! So you just became family with them, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
In a way, they were trusted to come to your house and all that.
Yeah.
That's cool, Rush. So tell me a little bit more about that. You were 14, you started cutting hair in the neighborhood, and then you came to the U.S. From the Philippines, and then how did that transition into becoming a barber now?
Professionally.
Professionally, yeah.
So I was still cutting for a while when I was here, and like I said, like I would say 7 years ago is when I started becoming more serious about barbering. I was actually running a vape business where I used to have my own lab creating vape juice, and since I met so many people within that industry, I figured, you know what, I love cutting hair. I knew all these people, and what if I become a barber, work at a barber shop, and actually charge, and actually make a living out of it. And sure enough, that's what I did. I got out of the vape business and I went straight to barbering. And the funny thing was, I thought, I knew it all coming into barber school because with all the experience that I had, but the method that I had was completely different than what they teach you in school. So in a way, even though I had the experience, I was still learning. I had to learn the method of zones, shear work,
Sectioning.
yeah, sectioning. Yeah, I didn't know all of that.
Using a comb.
Using a comb.
Well,
right?
wait a minute. Now that you're talking about it, tell me the story. You told me the story, but I think more people need to hear the story. All right, so the story, the famous story about the barber side.
Yeah.
You were new into school. You had
Yeah.
no idea. You've already been cutting at home, so
Yeah.
you're just talking about it. You felt like a professional.
Yeah.
So the barber side story. Tell us a little bit about that barber
So
side
the
story.
barber side store, I used to buy it in gallon, those big bottles.
Yeah.
And I had the bottle, the barber side bottle, and I would fill that up all the way to the top, and I thought that's how you use it this whole time.
So the concentrate, you would put soup. You would not dilute the barber side and put it straight
No.
into the jar.
Exactly, and I told my teacher that, and she started cracking up. It's like, dude, you're supposed to put water in there,
You're supposed to dilute it.
Exactly.
You're wondering why it was costing you so much to do this.
Exactly, because just before barber school, I was trying it out and see if I can try to charge people, because before I would just cut for fun and for free.
Yeah.
So when I started charging, they don't mind paying. I'm like, I can actually make money doing this. So, I'm trying to keep it clean as well, and for a long time, whatever I would make would just go to buying barber side.
You're breaking even with barber side?
Exactly.
You're like, how are these barbers making money?
Yeah. So that was the barber side story.
That's funny. So you did school. You went to barber school, and then so tell us a little bit more. How did that journey into being an educator? When did that spark strive in yourself? Like you were like, hey, you know what? Cutting hair is good. I've done it for so many years, but now I want to share my passion and start educating. When did that come along?
Ever since barber school, because even though it was new to me, when I was in barber school, I really forced myself to know more, right? So I used to open machines, trying to fix it, trying to figure it out, trying to get my clippers, all of that, trying to buy the latest and greatest tools just to test them out, see how they cut, to see the difference,
Yeah.
and I feel like since I've done plenty of those, I feel like I could teach, you know what I mean? Like, and a lot of students actually would ask me and ask me like how to do a certain things, which one is better, you know what I mean? Not just that, what kind of techniques you use when you're fading or you're tapering, and and that kind of felt good to me. I feel like I always have this extra information, you know what I mean? And I love sharing. I love sharing what I've learned and I've experienced. And I always knew one day in my barber, I guess, journey or my career, I always knew that I was gonna teach.
Yeah.
So that was that.
Is that something you found yourself doing back home? Are you like an only sibling? Do you have more siblings?
I have three more brothers.
Okay.
The second child. Would this be something I would be doing? What do you mean, like in the
Like,
Philippines?
yeah, is that something that was like something that you dreamed of like when you were younger? Like, hey, one day I'm gonna become a barber, or I mean, I know you had a couple careers in your life. Like,
Yeah.
how did you loop around back to barbering? You did it at 14. You
Yeah.
tried your vape. You tried what else did you do?
I did stocks. I did the whole nursing thing. I went to school.
Yeah, you've done a lot. Like, how did you loop back to like, you know what? Even though I've done so many things, like, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be.
Yeah, well, barbering, it's to be honest, it's my go-to. You know what I mean? I know I can make money barbering, and whether if I'm teaching or if I'm cutting, I can make money off of it, and I feel like it's so universal that you can take it anywhere. You know what I mean? And it's fun to do. It's not as stressful. You obviously got to put in the work, to and try to make it as lucrative as possible, so that way you can, provide for the family. But yeah, barbering to me is more of a passion other than other careers that I've had,
Yeah.
so I know like if one day I have to quit barbering, I have other careers that can support me, but barbering is kind of like what makes me happy in a way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great, Rush. It's nice to hear all the great experiences. Do you ever recall of an experience, maybe something major that kind of like made you be like, oh, you know what, this is my calling. This is what I was meant to do.
Uh-huh.
Is there something, maybe a story you can remember, or something like that, when you were like, you know what, dude, this is maybe. I know I've had it in the past. I myself have educated and still educate. So you get to those turning points where you have that one student who's like, oh, now I get what you really meant. Like,
Yeah, for sure. Many, you know. That turning point for me is, I would say, when I was cutting, right, at a barber shop, I had to quit mainly because at that time, I was still a new barber, and my wife wanted to do a dual, job as a nurse, and that's one thing that she's been wanting to do. So that's what we did, right? So she started working in Pasadena and here, but now I'm stuck at home, and I try to do barbering on the side, but I can't because
it's hard with
I
kids.
can because with the kids, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And
Even if you want to be a backyard barber,
yeah,
I know how it is. And once you
no,
have the
yeah,
kids,
definitely.
you got to be a babysitter and a backyard barber.
Exactly,
You can't
because
really just do one or the other.
I did that at home. I've always had like a barber set up at home, and I tried cutting at home, and believe it or not, people are still coming there, but it just doesn't feel right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I knew I had to either cut somewhere or do something, right? So when my wife, because when she did the double job, it was more of a contract, so it's like a three-month contract. Then after that, you know, I didn't even get back to barbering right away.
Yeah.
I went back to school again and did computer engineering, right? So I finished that, and then I was ready. I was ready to work as a computer engineer, and I thought I was never gonna cut again. And then here's a real funny true story. At this time, COVID hits, right? And so now everybody, you know, pretty much are staying at home. And for computer engineers, a lot of them, they mainly work at home, but for someone that is new, you probably need to put in time going in the office, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And at that time, I couldn't find a job because no one wanted to hire.
Yeah, we're going through
Yeah, we're going through that whole COVID thing, and here's a real true story. So my wife, obviously, who's a nurse, sometimes they would send her to float around different hospitals.
Yeah.
So one day she ended up working in Palomar, I believe, and one of our former students here, DK, shout out. he's one of the he's one of the first cohort students here.
Yeah.
He's also a respiratory technician.
Yeah, he's a respiratory tech.
Yeah. Happy to mention, I'm also a barber and I'm also a respiratory tech. And then my wife go, hey, you know what? My husband's a barber.
What?
And DK asked my wife, like, wait, what's your husband's name? Oh, Rush. Oh yeah, I know Rush. And then DK told my wife that, you know what? I think Wiley's looking for an educator. So after that, obviously me and Wiley started talking, and I came in one day and I told Wiley, you know what, let me try it and see if this is something I wanted to do, you know what I mean? And from then on, I never went back, I just started teaching, you know what I mean? It's really hard, like, if I'm being honest, really hard being an educator because, if I'm being quite honest, as a barber, you make more, right? But you gotta have the passion to be an educator because it's more of the satisfaction that you sharing your knowledge, do you know what I mean, versus making money, and that's very important.
Definitely, it does compensate long-term wise, but it is a big sacrifice at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think we've seen it, and I guess I've seen it with you. I mean, you've had a lot of growth within the school, and I mean, I've seen your ventures, and it's really exciting to see how the students really gravitate you, and they follow that passion. That you could really see how passionate you are about teaching. With all that passion, what's one of the subjects that you really like to teach your students? Like maybe your style of cutting or something like that. What's something that you really focus on, or that you think it's really important to teach your students?
Now that the hairstyle change, all the time, and with this pattern that we're going through right now, everyone's having longer hair, and I feel like we don't touch a lot on the shorts. Why we need layering? Why do we texturize? Why do we use your thinning shears, or your texturizing, your sliding shears, right? I feel like those are tools that you can use, and also other techniques that you can use to kind of elevate your barbering style of cutting. Because in a shop, when you're doing or you're using tools that not a lot of barbers use, it kind of feels expensive, right? It makes you feel like a little bit more legit, you know what I mean? And another thing about that is like if you know exactly what you're doing and you know, you can explain during the consultation what we're doing and here's what I'm trying to do to your client, that kind of separates you, you know, as a barber. And, you know, your client's starting to believe you. They starting to believe that, oh, okay, I really know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And we're going to be on the same page and I'm going to deliver what you asked me to do, you know?
Definitely, I guess being really professional, knowing your stuff matters too. You
Exactly.
know, so it's not just the techniques, but it's also having that knowledge through theory.
Exactly.
So what would you say your style of barbering is, or your style of cutting? I know that. I mean, I know what the students call you. They call you the shear god, right? Shear god. But how did you get to that? Like, what was that? Like, what was the process? I
Believe it or not,
mean,
like I didn't really learn shears since like after barber school, you know, like I didn't know how to use shears of 20 years of cutting. You know, my shears was my finger, you know, and I would just push the clippers using my fingers. That was my shear work, you know, and you know, shear work, I guess, intrigues me more because I know how to fade, I knew how to taper. You know, I feel like shears one thing that I was lacking. So, you know, I've watched and gone through many shows to watch shear work and watch multiple videos and like trying to imitate it, their technique. And, you know, as an educator, it kind of also forces me to learn the lingo of, you know, when you're doing shear work, right? So if you're going to try to explain something to someone or people who's learning, you got to make sure that you know what you're talking about,
definitely
or you're
right.
definitely going to lose your credibility, you know. So shears, I believe it's a good skills to have because, you know, a lot of barbers, and I've seen this at a barber shop, like when someone with a longer hair, they just look somewhere else, you know, they get scared because they don't even want to deal with it. They don't even want to do it, you know, and
Pushing away money, huh?
pushing away money. Exactly. You know, but once you know the basic of shear cutting, why why you have to put layers, why you have to texture hair, you know, to create movement. Why is your most common section is the fourth section, right? And then you're just breaking down in little subsection from there, you know, to create a cut. Like once you understand those basic, the haircut itself is not really the haircut, it's more of a shape. So
Yeah.
when you start looking at shape of the haircut, you tend to understand it more and you can deliver a lot easier, if that make any sense.
No, definitely.
You know what I mean?
It's the
So
fundamentals that school gives you.
exactly.
So, what do you think? Like, talking about fundamentals and talking about like obstacles that kind of we get through school. Other than the haircut, like, what do you think are some of the challenges that like a lot of us, maybe barbers, it doesn't have to necessarily be a student. It could be a licensed barber or barbers go through like in this industry. I mean, just for our audience out there that may be a barber, may not be a barber. Like, what do you think are some of the obstacles that we go through, or maybe what are some of the obstacles that you went through?
As a beginner or like a newly grad barber, you know, it's a lot of people, you know, end up quitting, you know, because they couldn't handle the pressure, you know, as a first year barber or even a cosmetology per se, you know, the pressure of, you know, making money is in everyone's head, you know, as a first year barber. And I think we put so much pressure within ourselves that, you know what, if this guy is making this much money as a barber, you know, I could do the same thing. You sure could do it, but you're not gonna do it on your first year. You know what I mean? You need to understand that that person you're trying to follow put in years, right? Learn and gain some experience throughout those years so he can put himself in that position where he can charge that much. You know, the biggest thing as a new barber is like You know, you go in a shop, you stayed in there, you feel like the shop is not bringing enough clientele. So what do you do as a new barber? You move somewhere else. You know, and I think that's one of the biggest mistakes a lot of new barbers make, because, you know, I think, call me old school, right? I feel like if you stay within a shop, you become the more familiar face within a shop. You know, so if someone just leave, well, guess who's the next person that you're gonna go to? Of course you, right? So again, there's also that. I know social media now is big, you know, and I understand a lot of people market through social media, and you know, but don't forget about the old school way of
Getting clientele.
yeah, getting clientele, the word of mouth,
word of
and
mouth.
talking to your clients about their personal life, and if they want to talk about it, you know, like it's the comfortability of client sitting on your chair, you know, that makes them comfortable enough to share a little bit of their life with you. And even with that, you know what I mean, like they feel safe, that they all they do is they want to keep coming back to you, you know what I mean. And creating relationship, you know, as far as like longevity is concerned, I think is very, very important.
Is working
know.
on building that clientele, right?
Exactly.
So what I think, what are some pointers that you could give to maybe new barbers or existing barbers that are struggling through that? I know that you yourself, I mean, I use you as a big example because other than having so much experience under your belt, you've been able to show a lot of different aspects of your talents, your business talent, that you've been able to open and close a company and leave green. Not many people get to do that.
Yeah.
You've been able to go into a new barbershop, be the newest be the rookie,
Yeah.
and be able to
And I take that challenges, you know.
outgrow some of the barbers there. Along the question that we were just talking about is advice for new barbers. You mentioned that the toughest time for barbers usually the first year because you're trying to gauge where you're at. So you went through some challenges as a rookie barber. You've gone through challenges in a school thinking you kind of had experience, and then you ended up having to figure out that you had to relearn, barbering in a way. So what is some advice that you think you could give like new barbers to get themselves booked, to get themselves, clientele in the chair? Because I think that's one of the hardest or toughest things that a lot of barber schools don't teach, or a lot of individuals really don't know. Even after going through barber school, a lot of people fall out because they can't keep themselves, busy. So give me some recommendations.
Some recommendation I would say, even myself, just now, recently, I started working during the weekend. And if I'm being quite honest with you, I feel like a rookie again, because I got to build clientele. My challenge was try not to bring my old clientele there, and like really trying to get to know the area, where I'm working at. So that way they don't question me as far as what my price is or what I'm charging at. So my advice, is go to a shop that's your vibe and kind of fits you, or the style that you do, because that's going to help you, focus and stay in the shop because you like going in there. It's almost like your second home. Now, the second thing is, as a first year barber, you really have to work and trying to get those clientele as far as your advertising, you talking to your clients, you pre-booking your clients, you know what I mean? Like those are the things that you got to do as a new barber. Staying longer within the barbershop, not trying to jump around. So that way, like what I was saying earlier, you become more of the familiar face, right? And that's really going to help you in the long run, Some barbershops are busy and some are don't because, majority of the time now barbershop is scheduled only, right? So as a new barber, you don't always set up to make a lot of money. You can start at a barbershop that, you know, makes a little less, but more busier, right? That's going to give you your experience, and I feel like you'll know when it's the right time, right? When it's the right time, okay, maybe I can charge a little bit more, or maybe, okay, this is not working out. I got to go try something else. But it's definitely one of those things where you have to experience to know, right? Because I can tell you all my experiences all day, but you still have to go through it, right? And as much as I really hate to say this, and it's just weird how it works itself out, the word, trust the process really works. You know what I mean? So it just works its way out there. And, if you really stick to what you believe in and your talent and how you advertise yourself, like, I know it's going to be tough, but it eventually pays off. You know what I mean? I promise that would happen. And
So that's some really good advice. I guess a little bit of what I caught from that was just be patient with the process.
exactly.
Things are going to come at its time.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the other things that I did catch in there was be, what do you call it? Consistent with it. Don't
Yeah.
fall out. Don't be
Exactly.
hopping from place to place because inconsistency also allows you to lose clientele. I think a lot of the times we live in a business where loyalty, like to your barber or like that is it's a big thing, but it's also like you could gain that loyalty based on how people see you, how they trust you. If they see that you're not a loyal individual, then they probably more than likely won't be loyal to you as well. So the inconsistency, if you're inconsistent to them, they will see that they could be inconsistent with you as well.
Oh, definitely. Like you, as a shop owner, I'm pretty sure you've gone through all of that. You know, maybe some previous employees that you might have. Every shop owner will go through that, and I get it. But as an owner, we got to move on as well. And again, like as an advice, like going back to the question, for new students or new barbers, almost everywhere you go when you're starting it all over again, because really all it takes is like going to a different city, when you're cutting, some of them might follow you, but some might not. So technically you're starting all over again, So
You can move
yeah.
5 minutes down the road.
Yeah,
Some if they don't,
If they don't want to go there, they're not gonna
not
go
gonna
there,
go.
right? So again, there is nothing wrong with struggling. You have to struggle it, go through it. So if that situation ever occur again, where you have to move different state or different location, it's not something new, right? You know what to do to get yourself busy, right? And you got to be that person, because no one is going to sit on your chair and when you're charging $50 without you going out there and trying to get them. You know what I mean? So it's really up to you. You can make potential amount of money, or you can just make regular type of money. I don't know if this is the right way to say it. It's like got to be the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
But you can also make that place the right place, even though it's the wrong place for you, by putting in the work. So in a way, it all boils down to, you want to be successful, right? You got to put in the work. There's no way around it. You know what I mean? Like, even if the shop that you're working at have the best promoting thing, you still have to put the work. Because at the end of the day, the people that sit on there, whether you brought them in or the shop brought them in, they have to trust you as their barber.
To even come back to a second time. So
Exactly. It's longevity over anything.
I think I heard a really good quote one time. It's like I'd rather cut one person 1,000 times than 1,000 people one time.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's all
Right.
to do with, having to be able to be consistent with it,
Right.
being able to be a good barber. And that just means a lot more than just doing a good haircut, right?
Exactly. A lot of barbers can do really good haircuts, but, you know, again, longevity. I've been cutting kids who were since they were 7, and now they're in high school, and some of them are in college, and I'm still cutting their hair. Not just that, their dad. So
Generations again.
yeah, that's what I'm
So now
saying.
you're
Right?
that.
So
Now you're that barber, like you were talking about, like
I'm
somebody
already
that
there.
you're that barber that you
What
looked up to, and that
Yeah.
kind of inspired you back in the Philippines, and that's cool that you get blessed to kind of now do that.
It's kind of cool. I've had clients who's gone to different states to go to college. They would fly down here to see me, right, and get a haircut from me.
So with that advice for our new up and coming barbers, that's really good advice, Rush. I do believe a lot in that. Not just because the barber shop is busy, that means that you're gonna go in there and be busy. You still got to work in there. It's not.
Exactly.
You're not gonna get the trust from clientele right off the bat. Just because the shop has built a name, that doesn't mean that you've built a name for yourself. So
Yeah.
it's always kind of starting back to ground zero.
Exactly.
I think one of the best things that we have to kind of acknowledge and to notice too is that if we lose the fear of taking risks, we already know how to get to where we have been.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter how, like, what you risk, because you already know how to get to zero to where you're at now.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah, it's the experience,
even if
right?
you risk
So-
it, now it's going to take you a lot less time to get from zero to where you're at.
Exactly.
Because you already know those steps.
And plus, I already know the process. I'm going to give you an example, right? So I just started working on the weekend. It was my first weekend of working back to this shop. Again, I challenged myself not to bring any of my clients that I know there to cut because I want to get to know the neighborhood. So my first weekend, I only cut 2 hair. You know what? I'm okay with that. I didn't know anyone there, right? My Saturday, right? Should be one of the busiest days. On Sunday, I cut 3, right? So I did 5 haircuts in 2 days. But guess what? I was there from 10 to 7 o'clock on Saturday and from 9 to 5 on Sunday. I'm in that barber shop. You know why? It's because I want the neighborhood to see me there as a barber, that I actually exist. You see what I mean?
Yep.
Sometimes, you not getting paid because of all those hours that you're just in the shop. That doesn't mean you're not gaining anything from it. You know what I mean? You're just pretty much letting them know, hey, you're there, you're a barber, and they see you on those days. And it's just a matter of time. And I have nothing but patience. If I can get 2 now in one weekend, maybe my next weekend I get 3 or 4. Well, guess what? On an 8-hour day, if you're doing 1-hour service, all you really need is 8. You know what I mean? So 2 for the first weekend on Saturday, you know what? I'm not mad. You know what I mean? I'm not mad.
And I think it's really important how you're gauging that. You know
Yeah.
that you got 2. So that
Exactly.
already knows, and then that's really important. I think a lot of barbers don't really do this.
Yeah.
Where you gauge your numbers. You got 2 this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So now what's next weekend? Everybody forgets. Like, oh yeah. I think I recently had a conversation with Wiley. Everybody talks about that number that they've gotten to, that's been the most number they've gotten to. So if you ask a barber, hey, how much do you make? Oh, I make $2,200 in a week. They might have made that at one point, but they
But
never
not
get back.
consistent.
But they don't get to make that number again. But when you ask them, that's the number they will always tell you.
See, here's
and then you're fooling yourself.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
you're spending, like, you made $2,200 in a week, when
One
in reality
time.
you're making $800-500 a week, and you
Right.
don't get to gauge that. So it's really important, and it's really cool that you know your numbers to
Exactly.
gauge that growth.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you an example, right? Our haircut there is $50, okay, for a haircut. I did 2, okay, on Saturday, so that's automatically $100, and I got two $30 tip off of that, right? I know, and then I got 3 on Sunday. I know I'm gonna make I'm gonna make 250 off of 5 people. I already know that, right? But you see, like what you were saying, gauging, right? You know what? 250. All right, it might be a little low. Well, guess what? It's also my first weekend. I don't work there every day, right?
And it's 2 days.
You know, and it's 2 days, and I'm doing this just to create like extra income, right? And because what type of educator would I be? And I'm telling all these students to do this and do that, and I'm not gonna experience it myself. Come on now, you know what I mean? I gotta be a good example for you guys.
I think with 20 years of experience, Rush, you kind of wow us all.
This is me. I'm trying to prove that you know what? You can be at any place without knowing anyone and still make money. That's my whole point, right? You got to go out there. You got to go get them. You got to introduce yourself. You got to let them know that you exist. You got to let them know that, you know what? You offer a good service, right? So it's the process. Once you have that process down, it doesn't matter wherever you go, you're always going to have it with you. So if you have to start at zero again, well, guess you know what? You know the process. You know what I mean? You know how hard it is, right? And as you learn that, you go along with your career, you're going to be fearless. That's all it is, right? And you can start as many times over and over again and still be successful.
We're getting down to the end of this cut. In conclusion, Rush,
Yeah.
leave us with some final words.
All right. Well, you know, my suggestions to upcoming
Give him the sauce. Tell him why
Upcoming barber,
tell him why you're the
right?
one. Tell him why you're the one.
yeah. So this is the sauce, right? You know, don't get discouraged just because you're new. You know, as a new barber, right? I told my student this many times before. You know, I thought I was the one right out of the barber school. I wasn't. You know, when I started working at that shop, you know, you got to remember that, you know, you never feel comfortable. You will never feel comfortable until you're in that shop and you're chopping it up, right? So more experience is going to come into that versus barber school because now you're dealing with real clients and everything that you have learned in barber school must be applied because there is no one there to help you. And do not let that discourage you, right? You got to go through it. You know, you're going to make mistakes in barber school or in real life, right? When you have clients, you know, as you go along, you know, you're going to learn how to fix mistakes, right? There is no the right time. You just got to go for it head on, you know, because when is it really going to be the right time for you to be successful, right? It's a question that no one can really answer. You know, it's really up to you. When do you want to put the work, right? You either put the work now, you put the work later, you know. Experience is never gained by just sitting around. You know, you got to gain that by actually doing it, you know, or experience not gained by just listening to people with their wise advice. You got to go there and experience it. So, again, my main thing that I want to tell the student is like, go for your dream, man. Like, you went to school, you did the hard work to be a barber, then go out there and be a barber.
That's right, Rush.
That's it.
You heard it from the man. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. This is the first of many that's more to come. So, hope you guys see you guys soon in the next one. Thank you, Rush, man. I appreciate everything.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Chill,